We can start, and other participants will join us. Welcome to a webinar series for library and information science students, brought to you by the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, Division 4, which is called, Division 4 is called Support of the Profession. My name is Albina Krymskaya. I'm the secretary for the Division 4 and for the section on education and training. We're glad you joined us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Before we begin today, I just want to give you a brief overview of the Division 4 and the function of this division. And there are 5 divisions in IFLA in the former structure, and as you know, in future structure will be moderated. Moderated. And so the function of the Division 4 is to coordinate the professional activities of its members and ensure good communications between sections. Support of the profession includes 7 sections and 4 special interest groups. These units have been very active during this month to organize this webinar, and so thank you all of them, and also we thank IFLA headquarters for their professional support. I have a few slides to share with you, and just to tell you briefly what we are going to have today. Okay, just a second. Okay. Just a second. Apologize.
No worries, no worries. We saw your slides earlier.
Yes. Okay. So today it is our second webinar in the project, a series of webinar for LAS students. This project aims to create a place for students to share their projects, research, and ideas about different topics related to libraries. And the topic of today's webinar is Project in the Libraries, Ideas, Innovations, and Initiatives. We are going to run 1 hour and a half. This event is being recorded, and microphones have been muted for this event. Video of today's webinar will be posted on YouTube, and the link will be posted on the IFLA Division 4 webpage, and as well as sections on education and other sections of the Division 4, and on social media, of course. If you have any questions or comments, please type into Q&A questions and answers box. If you have any questions, issues about privacy, you can send your questions to professional support at ifla.org. And we will have 4 presentations for today's sessions, and they are from Norway, the Philippines, and the United States. So before I start introducing the moderator of today's webinar, Eric Birkenstein, I'd like to say that first time I saw Eric in 2019 at the IFLA Congress, when he was one of the moderators of the IFLA President Christine McKenzie's session. I still remember how I was impressed by his moderating the session, and so we are very happy that Eric could join us for this webinar. Thank you, Eric. So Eric is a senior advisor at the National Library at the Netherlands. He is board member of Storyhouse Chester in United Kingdom. Also, he is Library and Information Science Department of Syracuse University of the United States, Library and Information Science Fellow. He is consultant of the Project Public Libraries 2020 and the founding father of Public Libraries 2030. Eric also is a facilitator and consultant for IFLA. He is owner of Sheniki Media and producer of This Week in Libraries. In case you do not know this impressive video podcast, This Week in Libraries, I encourage you to have a look at this at thisweekinlibraries.com. Eric is a producer of Sheneke Tours Global Library Motivator. Besides, he is musician, author, and he is the real librarian with a wide range of competencies. The library journal named Eric Buchenstein as 2009 mover and shaker of the library world. And finally, he is the best librarian in the Netherlands 2015. As colleagues say, Eric is the best library friend that you can get in this world. Please welcome Eric Buchenstein. Thank you, Eric, for joining us to moderate today's webinar, and I turn it to you.
Thank you so much. I'm getting a bit shy. It sounds like way too much to have all this written down. I will shorten it for the next time we do this and make it a little bit more concise because it sounds a bit like boasting. It's an honor to be here. Like I said, I think the best part of my job is to meet so many librarians and passionate people about libraries in other institutions around the world, and there's never a day goes by without me being impressed by the creativity, like I said, the passion and the willingness to innovate and to provide better services to our end users. So I think we do have the best job in the world, and to see people coming up like the people who will present today with new ideas all the time, every time I talk to new people, is a rare opportunity, and it's an honor. I have put together just a few slides. See if this one should be it. I think. We'll start. Go up. There we go. Just to give an impression where I'm from, as was mentioned, I work for the National Library of the Netherlands since 4 years now, I think. Wait a second, don't go there yet. My role there is here, as it says, to help libraries innovate in the Netherlands. So libraries can call me and they can say, Eric, we have an idea, but we need some help to get to the next step, the next level. And my role is usually to join in for 2 or 3 meetings and connect them to best practice examples around the world, in the Netherlands, preferably, of course, because that's closest by and handiest. And like I said, a wide range of topics passed me by and land on my desk. I helped out with the new vision, global vision for IFLA in 2019. This is in Athens, the beautiful library of Athens. It was a process, I think, of almost 2 years of building the first workshop for the board and then taking it to the regions and doing it with this group in Athens. I think very brave, and after 90 years of existence for IFLA, to really change the way they look at the world and the way they reach out to libraries and librarians. Very well done. As I said, I traveled a lot. I think I spent my life in library land, traveling at least four months a year between 2007 and 2015, visiting libraries everywhere, writing books about it, doing a lot of talks about it, and helping building libraries in several places. The picture you see here is a render from a library in Sydney, Green Square Plaza. If you're ever in Sydney, I recommend you to visit. It's a gorgeous building. I'm a board member to Story House in Chester. One day, maybe I'll move there because it's such a gorgeous building. Check it out on the internet, storyhouse.com. An amazing place, a theater, a cinema, and a library. I work closely with David, like the fellow of the Syracuse Institute. David has moved now to Texas. But we do a few projects together in Europe. Newcomer is a project on community librarianship in Europe, 7 countries join in trying to improve our services to immigrants, other people coming to Europe, and see what we can do to help them be included in our societies. There's one thing that I just wanted to go before we go to the way more important speakers of today, is that we have a call out now together with David for abstracts that'll partly be used in his new book, the new Atlas, librarianship, and also there will be 4 symposia in the end of the year on equity, diversity, and inclusion, one on post-neutral librarianship, one on international influences, and one on the new normal agenda after COVID. I will send my slides over to the organization so you can check, and you can also Google this and you'll find it no doubt somewhere. But I strongly recommend if you are interested in being part of David's new book or to do a presentation on one of these symposiums on one of these topics, to have a look at this and join in. I'll stop sharing my slides. If everything is okay, we're right back, and we are still on time, more or less. So without further ado, we're going to the real thing that matters today, and those are 4 presentations that we're going to run by. Every presentation will have 15 minutes, including questions, so we'll reserve some time for your questions. As Albina said, put in your questions in the Q&A box, and there will be people moderating those questions and forwarding them to me at the end of each talk. I will see them on my screen, or I'll hear them, and I'll pass them on to the presenters. And this way we have a little bit more insight in what has been said. Going to the first presentation, Randolph Mariano in Norway, but also with a link to the Philippines. I saw in your bio, you've studied your bachelor's and your master's degree in, I think in the Philippines.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're now in Norway, which is a totally different country.
That's true.
I was very interested to read you're part of the Lancome group. I always like the mixture, as in Storyhouse, of different institutions in one institute. So libraries, archives, museums, and how you reach out to your communities is very interesting. Diplomacy is also a topic that I think is strongly related to libraries. We are still a bit too quiet about this. We maybe should be louder and raising our voice on this topic. So I'm very happy with your presentation. I used to work as a digital engagement librarian. For the people listening in who don't know that, maybe it's a good idea to just briefly mention something. What is a digital engagement librarian? I will stop and give you the floor. Please put on your presentation, your slides, welcome, and take us away for the next 15 minutes.
All right, thanks for that wonderful introduction. Yes, so I'm gonna share screen my presentation. Can you hear me? Is it clear?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right, so can you see my presentation right now? All right, so first and foremost, thank you, IFLA, for supporting LIS students to share some innovative projects and ideas in libraries that, that may help our colleagues in the field to be up to date with the extant research and trends. So my talk for today is about Library Diplomacy Initiative, the role of foreign cultural centers in bridging culture and innovation. So as we may all know, libraries, museums, and cultural centers have long been associated as foreign policy platforms and instruments for cultural diplomacy. These cultural institutions act as a foreign policy resource and instrument of governments and also non-governmental organizations and recently private sectors to pursue cultural diplomacy and relations. The study of Prieto Gutierrez in 2016 found out that there are about 3,745 foreign cultural centers that actively promotes cultural diplomacy and cultural political discourse abroad. So why is this important? With the current global information challenges that we're facing right now in the 21st century foreign affairs, we have seen fake news, we have seen post-truth, information warfare between nation states and countries. There's also this recent computational propaganda a COVID-19 infodemic crisis, and wide array of digital reading, science and technology, and environmental literacy gaps that have emerged across the globe, probably the study on the essential role of libraries, the cultural centers and museums in foreign policy and cultural diplomacy among the international communities become perhaps more essential than ever, and significantly a starting point for a research or a practice to revisit the concept of library diplomacy. So the main purpose of this presentation is to highlight some extant role of selected foreign cultural centers in the library diplomacy scene, and also emphasize the role of non-state actors such as IFLA in advocating and pursuing library diplomacy, and also reflect on these case studies and look at the future of library diplomacy, and also look at what ideas we could borrow from these centers and spaces. Probably you're familiar with this institutions, cultural institutions that houses its own libraries and museums and innovation hubs. These cultural spaces aimed at promoting people-to-people understanding and relationship between the cultural agents or partners and recipients. And these institutions that you can see right now in the screen have long been associated with public diplomacy practices since the World War II and the Cold War period. And as we may all know, this is the time of the spread of the cultural propaganda, which has this negative connotation because it's a one-way form of diplomacy. But now in the contemporary age, in the modern age, we see a different form of diplomacy, which is a transnational, transcultural, across-cultural, a multilateral and reciprocal relationship between nation states, institutions that have emerged across the globe. There's two main ingredients, the bread and butter terms and concepts in library diplomacy. Number one is cultural diplomacy, which is an umbrella term of public diplomacy. It's an international relations strategy that enables foreign policy to influence and attitudes in implementing and communicating identities, ideas, and values. While foreign policy, this is it enables cultural diplomacy. It is a set of actions, rules, visions, and goals of an institution or a nation state that guides positions and situates its national interests and principles within the international environment. So I will present to you a glimpse of our result of the systematic review that we've conducted recently on the role of libraries, museums, and cultural centers in foreign policy and cultural diplomacy. So of all of the 6,436 research that we have found out, some goals and motives, agendas, actors, and strategies and instruments being used by these institutions to promote cultural diplomacy. And one of which is, the majority ones is democratic values and civic engagement values. And these are particularly in the time of the Cold War period and in the World War II period, where these cultural institutions are spreading this national interest of democratic ideals. But also there's emerging goals and values such as creative values, civic engagement values, and entrepreneurship, which is quite exciting and interesting. And also with regard to the actors, we are not talking about anymore about the state actors anymore. There's also emerging non-state actors, and also a combination and intertwinement between non-state and state actors in promoting cultural and innovation diplomacy. And also with regard to the strategies, most of the institutions in this research, there's one form of cultural diplomacy, which they call cultural propaganda, but there's also an emerging one, which is a cross-cultural relations, or a two-way form of diplomacy. And with regard to the instruments, we have seen books, visual arts, literacy, education as tools for diplomacy that we categorize as a knowledge transfer. And there's also cultural heritage preservation and the practice of librarianship and library exchange programs as instruments for diplomacy. And also emerging instruments such as pop culture, digitalization, and social media. So now, if we compare changes from past to present based on the practices, we have seen tremendous change on how things work in these foreign cultural centers. Most of the centers are not focusing anymore with the collection. They are focused more on the connection with the people. As Eric said a while ago, David Lankes is one of the proponents of these collection to connection principle. And we've also seen the combination of physical and digital spaces, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic era and period. And also the changes in programs and initiatives and changes of actors and communities involved in cultural diplomacy. And now let's proceed with the case studies. Yes, so the first one is the American Spaces. Probably the senior ones, they know this as the US Information Agency. They are well known for its book aid programs, English language literacy programs, and spreading democratic ideals during the Cold War period. And currently there are around 600 spaces in 142 countries worldwide. American Spaces promotes US foreign policy by conducting cultural programming that provides foreign public to experience American culture, media, and technology. And now, as you can see in the photo, they are now gearing towards promoting creative values, entrepreneurship, using maker spaces and the maker movement as an instrument for diplomacy. As you can see in the photo right now, it is the American Space in Jakarta, in Almaty, in Kazakhstan, in Abuja and Lagos, in Nigeria, and also in Athens. And they have been actively promoting makerspace programs, 3D printing workshops, STEAM online courses, coding workshops, in partnership with their soft power, the technology, which is Google and Microsoft. Now let's proceed with British Council. They're well known for its English language teaching and education advocacy since the World War II. And now there are 200 spaces in more than 100 countries around the world that continues to promote wide appreciation of British culture and innovation. And now they're actively promoting creative hubs for entrepreneurs to jump on the bandwagon on the creative industries and support the so-called creative economy. And this is one of the programs of the British Council right now, which they called Creative Enterprise Program, that supports entrepreneurs, visual and performance artists, cultural professionals to build sustainable and creative social businesses. So yeah, so this program is a program from British Council in Malaysia, in Armenia, and Russia. The third is the Goethe Institute, same with the British Council. They're well known for education diplomacy, promoting German language and higher education. And now they're focusing now, not only in books, but also in coding and hackathon. Hackathon is usually a day-long, can be 36 hours, 48 hours coding competition where software programmers, developers, designers come together to build and design. And the catch is to build and solve real-world problems. And most of the hackathons of the Goethe Institute, they call it Coding Da Vinci, the cultural hackathon for digital and museum literacies. They also have this recent one, as you can see here in the left, the Hack Your Culture platform that brings together GLAM, the galleries, libraries, archives, and museums with creative minds and tech enthusiasts to bring collaborators and innovations from open cultural data. The last two is the Korean Cultural Center. As we may all know, Korea is famous for its soft power of pop culture and gaming culture and media culture and state-of-the-art technologies. That is why they have recently embarked with the various virtual reality projects to promote culture digitally. One of which is this Dream Believer, as you can see in the poster. It's a VR exhibition of Korean contemporary artists. There's also virtual handbook exhibition, a gaming culture exhibition, and you could even watch an orchestra in a 360 viewing experience using VR technology. Yeah, so this is quite popular and timely because of the COVID-19 pandemic where people cannot visit the physical spaces. And lastly, the Japan Foundation Innovation Center. They're famous previously in promoting cultural heritage and programs and educational programs in partnership with UNESCO in the 80s and 90s after the World War II. Now they've been actively promoting in the social innovation programs that helps developing nations like Southeast Asia to tackle and solve social issues such as poverty and social injustice. And the last slide is a non-state actor. And it's and I'm so This is a fantastic program of the IFLA Libraries of the Map of the World. This is not an initiative of a state actor, but it's an initiative of a non-state actor, a professional organization that promotes and advocates for libraries, innovation, and culture. So now we have seen IFLA as one of the leading and knowledge library advocate for this endeavor, and to show the potential of the global library field using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals initiative in meeting local development needs. And this is part of building the network and collaborating with all of these cultural partners and institutions to realize the goal of library diplomacy and advocacy. So in conclusion, we've seen this shift from collection to connection, focusing on the people itself, building the network, building the cultural relationship and partnership with one another, and creative values, entrepreneurship values, and civic engagement values are a thing right now, and everything is going digital. And there's a future for library diplomacy and international librarianship for culture and innovation. So yeah, so I feel like this is this is how I end my topic for today. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Randolph. I'll give you. It's difficult to give an applause here, but you get my applause here.
Yeah.
Of course, I have a question myself. You're well in time. Well done. And there will be some questions, I think, from Baina and the crew who are moderating this. Listening to you, I have basically two questions that we maybe can do quickly. David Lankes also talks a lot about neutrality versus activism, the role of the library as an activism, and in different countries around the world, and there's people watching from everywhere. Those words, neutrality, also activism, have maybe different meaning. How, in your view, what role does the library have? Do you think we should be neutral? Do you think we should be facilitators and also facilitate more activism sort of roles? Of how do you see that?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question, because we have seen a lot of independent libraries worldwide promoting advocacies and activism. And I feel like librarians and libraries should have a voice on things. And especially when we see something that is not good, then we should, make it right. And we should not be as neutral as possible, because we are not dealing with collection anymore. We're dealing with people. We're dealing with connection, and we're also competing with other technologies and other emerging platforms. So we're competing with media, we're competing with social media, we're competing with different kinds of competitors. And so we have to be proactive, and we have to be proactive in promoting our own collection, our own services for the benefit of the public.
Totally agree. I have a question from Alina Katina in the chat, in the question is Q&A box. And she says, Randolph, how can library diplomacy and the internationalization of library information education be linked between each other?
Sorry, could you repeat it again? Sorry, because I can't really see the question.
How can the library diplomacy and the internationalization of library information education, so the library information schools, be linked?
Yeah, so international education and international diplomacy, it depends on the actors or communities involved in promoting diplomacy. When we say diplomacy, it's a relationship. And when we say relationship, we're building networks. So that's the thing that most libraries are currently lacking right now. When we see the museum, our museum counterparts, they're building a lot of museum diplomacy programs overseas. And there's also institutional policies within these independent museums. They try to engage and promote with other museums abroad. And this is what lacks right now in the library scene. And I hope that the future of library diplomacy is that independent libraries, not only state government or not only non-governmental such as professional organization, but also independent libraries should also connect with other independent libraries overseas or abroad to build cultural relationship or innovation or technology relationship, because that's what we learn. We learn from each other. Yeah.
It's very, very true. I don't have time for all the questions, but I see one that says, I feel the tweet highlights the need for us to evolve and wonderful presentation. My question is, what platforms can we participate in towards a global approach to redefine the library role in IFLA Division 4? And I would like to extend that a bit myself by saying, like, what sort of advice do you have for IFLA to do more with this in the future with your topic, diplomacy?
Yeah, so just continue this library map of the world. Just continue connecting people, continue connecting all the librarians and library institutions, because we need to learn from each other. We are not competitors. We need to learn from one another, and that's the spirit of library diplomacy. And we have to realize the so-called soft power. The museums have already realized their own soft power. When we say soft power, the attraction of our collection, of our services to the domestic and foreign public. And that's what we need to realize in the professional organization and also in the independent public libraries, that we have our own soft power. We have our own attraction that needs to be realized by our users and community.
Thank you so much. Last question. From Al Abir I Kouari, if I pronounce it correctly, I hope so. Do you think cultural diplomacy can enhance inclusion of a diverse community within one country, or is impact is only external to other countries?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question, because previously it's all about one-way form of diplomacy. It's always like the cultural agent and the cultural recipient. Now it's different. It's very organic. It's both ways. And also users are also part of as a cultural agents. Now we see a lot of influencers in media, in social media. They are also creators of culture and creators of knowledge and information. The information highway is so diverse now, and it's very complicated. So that's why we have to show up. Libraries should show up, and libraries should, realize that they have their own soft power. They have their own library diplomacy, that they could connect with other people and communities, not only with their domestic public, but also international engagement as well.
Libraries should show up. I really like it. Maybe that should be the presentation's title. Libraries should show up. Thank you, Randall, so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of other questions, but maybe they will reach to you in another way, and you get to answer them later on.
They could email me in my in the presentation at yeah.
Thank you so much. We move on quickly to Gerald Cidinho and J. Michael Odriola from the Philippines. I think J. Michael is starting and Gerald will come later. They will do the presentation together. They both are working for the La Salle Zobel School, I have to pronounce it correctly. And they're going to do a presentation on gamification as a way, with especially regarded to Minecraft as a virtual library that they built in a way of increasing student engagement. And in these pandemic times, the fact that everybody's online at home, feeling not so much included. It's true. And when I was reading about the presentation, it struck me there is such a great need for ways to feel involved and to feel part of that whole university, that educational system and everything else. And if this, and I believe this can be a good way to do it. So I want to learn all about librarianship, about the virtual library and the role it plays, and everything that helps to feel more together in these crazy times. So please, guys, take it away. You have 50 minutes, and I already know there will be lots of questions. So put your questions in the Q&A box, and I think I give the word to Gerald. To J. Michael first, I think. Yeah, J. Michael.
Okay, thank you, Eric. What we are going to share today is the Minecraft virtual library that we created for our school. The presentation will be divided in two parts. The first one is I will introduce on how we come up this idea, and the second one is we're going to take you on a library tour to our virtual library. Okay, so it's 7 p.m. here in the Philippines. So good evening, everyone, and good morning to the others. Okay, this pandemic brings a lot of problems and challenges to us. It changes the way we do things, from simple things like traveling to conducting classes. One of my favorite Marvel superhero is Spider-Man. He once said, with great powers comes great responsibility. Good thing, how I wish I have the superpowers to end all these challenges. Good thing, superpowers is not the only option for the library to work in our current situation. Out of the box ideas and initiative could turn a negative situation in a positive one. By juggling the quote of Mr. Peter Parker, we could turn it into something that we could fit our situation. With great responsibility, great comes great power. And this is the thinking that we used to adapt and started our idea of a Minecraft virtual library. We look at the challenges and problems brought about by the pandemic as a responsibility. A responsibility to come up with something that would continue the school library as a relevant part of the online education. A responsibility to the library users to continue to deliver our services. With that thinking, we started planning our out-of-the-box project of a virtual library. We called it the COVID approach. COVID approach because looking back on how we planned out, we used the word COVID to go about this. First one is letter C. In creating virtual library, the first thing on our mind is to be creative. We wanted to come out something that is unique and functional. So we look for different apps that we could use. Initially, we identify possible apps, Google Sites, Facebook, and Minecraft. Then, we organize. We identify the things that we should have online to call it a virtual library. First, we thought that we need something library user can use to access our online collection. Using hyperlink, we identified that we can use all the three applications. Then second, important feature of a virtual library should include a virtual librarian. We understand that for a virtual library to be successful, there should be a way for the users to communicate and interact with the school librarians. At first, we thought that the best option that we have for this feature is the Facebook because it already includes a messaging feature. But using app extensions and other third-party applications, we realized the probability of also having this messaging feature in the Google Sites and Minecraft. Then letter B, visual. We wanted the library users to have a visual feel of a real library visit every time they go to the virtual library. This is where the Minecraft app have a big advantage over Google Sites and Facebook. Since using Minecraft, we can create an exact representation of the school library. We can rebuild the library in a virtual setting. We will make the library user visit the closest to the real world experience. Then I, for interesting. We wanted to have something that a school library user would be interested to visit. What would be more interesting for young library user to see a game-based virtual library that they are familiar and they are fun of playing with. This is when we decided that we'll be using the Minecraft app. Then lastly, the letter D, doable. Is it doable? Given the short amount of time that we have back then and all the important requirements and features that we wanted to include in the virtual library, the question of can we do it on time came out. Luckily, the Minecraft Education Edition is a user-friendly app that is easy and fun to use. And so the DLSC Minecraft Virtual Library is born. Now, for you to have a better idea of the Minecraft library, my colleague, Mr. Geraldino, will be sharing with you some details about the Minecraft education, and we will take you on a tour on our virtual library. So sit back and join us for a tour.
Thank you, J. Mike.
So before we go to the library, let me discuss the definition. So what is Minecraft like? What is Minecraft? So if you don't know Minecraft, let me explain. So Minecraft is a sandbox open world game made by Mojang that was released way back in 2011. So it's not a new game, it's not a new technology. So and then Mojang was then purchased by Microsoft. So with the possibilities of it, Microsoft saw it and then they bought Mojang eventually. So Minecraft became available in various platforms. So because it's a game, it became available to PlayStation, Xbox, and many more. So it took us half a day to finish the build. So you can build any virtual library in Minecraft in a quick way. So it doesn't take long as you know the basic and the core function of Minecraft. So with those information, let's go to our DLSC Junior High School Library. So can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, let's go hit play and then view my worlds. As you can see, there are 3 worlds in here. Due to the time, we won't be able to explore the other 2, but the other 2 are the libraries that were created by our students. So these are very massive libraries that they thought of themselves, and then we had an activity, and then they had to think of their library, of their own version of library. So they came up with very innovative and cute stuff. So let's play our library. So let's wait for it to load. Okay, generating world. Here we go. So we are outside our library now. So as you can see, there's a door and a computer. So with this computer, I instructed it to give instructions to the students and to the users. So welcome to the high school library and a short introduction. Let's go inside. So before we go further, let's go tap our ID. Oh, welcome to Jacobo Santiago Sobel Memorial Library. That's the name of our library. So with this, Minecraft also supports some coding. So if you do know some coding, there's a lot of possibilities now again in Minecraft. So in Minecraft, we develop three core importance of it. So the first one is the online resources. The second one is the online reference service. And then the third one is the information literacy videos that we created. So let's go first at let's go here. How to use EBSCO. So we use non-playable characters, NPCs, to give the students what they need. So let's right click on it. And then it will say, here in our library, we have online resources at EBSCO. To know what and how to use it, click the box below. So there's a video on how to use EBSCO. So we made that one up. And then there's the EBSCO website. So it's like a one-stop shop for everything that the students need in the library. So let's try clicking it. And then it will open up the Google Chrome to open up the video for our EBSCO. So let's go check on that later.
Gerald, I have to warn you, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes. Okay, that's more than enough. Okay, so let's go explore the library. So we have the information literacy here. So how to avoid plagiarism. So if you click on that, it will go to the we'll go outside of Minecraft, and then we'll redirect you to the video that we prepared for the students. And then let's go now to the online reference services. So if we talk to our librarian, so this is Sir Roy here. He's our night school librarian. So if we talk to him, it will redirect us to the Grabrarian service. So this is our online reference chat. So this is created by our colleague too, so Sir Richard Ravalo. So if you message it, so you can get in touch with a librarian pretty much any time if there is an available librarian outside the school hours. So there you go. So this is our virtual library. So anything that you see is just like our physical library in the school. So pretty much that's it. So thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much, Gerald and Michael. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I could listen to this for another half an hour at least easily, but we have more speakers and we have limited time and we have to be on time. So I'm so sorry to step it up. First of all, would it be possible to call your Minecraft library the Peter Parker library or not?
It's possible. If you want to make it like a red team and a Spider-Man team, it's really possible.
I think it's already a good idea. One question for me, then I'll go to the rest. I think it's amazing. It's a great idea. I'm just curious, is it well used? Do people use it? And what are your future plans after COVID? Will you keep it up? Will it grow? Will it get even better? Of course it will get better, but what are the plans?
Actually, for our future plan, we plan to continue using this when we go back to the normal setting. I think this will be a great help for us to offer 24/7 assistance to our library users. So they can reach us anytime and they can access the library anywhere. So I guess we're gonna continue this as an additional feature of our library.
Really cool, really cool. I have quite some reactions here in the chat. Alina Katina asked, is it available somewhere online? Can I play it? Can we play it if we want?
Sir Gerald.
We actually provided the file only for the students, so it's not like the open service of the regular Minecraft, because we use the Minecraft Education Edition for this one. So unfortunately, it's for the DLSE community. But you can create your own Minecraft if you want to.
So that's maybe even a better idea, because I believe you have to do something. You can learn from global experiences, but you have to give it a local touch. So maybe it's a good idea if there's instructions or a toolbox on how to build this, and
Actually,
put that on the side somewhere and
we
help people to build their own.
we created a YouTube channel, which is the main idea is to assist other librarians on how to create some ideas and or initiatives that we are doing. So we are uploading library tutorials, and also I think this is included. And how can you make a virtual Minecraft library? So you may visit our YouTube channel for some instruction if you're interested in using the Minecraft.
Once again, I see a question from Georgios Glossiopostis, probably from Greece. Statistics, everybody we are librarians. We want to know statistics about the usage. So if you maybe can put them online for us or for people tuning in, watching it later, looking at it later, that would be great to get some idea of the usage. And I have a question here is from Sushama Sahu from India. My question is that we are the digital platforms or activities that your library is helping the school students during this pandemic time, please. What are the digital platforms that your librarian is helping the school students with? So the main question is, what are the platforms?
Actually, we have the Minecraft library, and also for our lower grades, the lower grade student, because Minecraft is a game-based application, and it is not advisable for ages 5 to 8. So we created a Google Site virtual library for them. We use Google Site for that, and also we develop an app for our Grabrarian. So we build that app specifically for Grabrarians. I think that is basically the application that we are using.
And is there any age restriction? Is there any sort of target groups? Do you say not only this age, or is it open to everyone?
Actually, the Minecraft app, the age restriction is it's within our school rule. It's the rule in our school that we will only offer the Minecraft application from grade 4 to grade 12. So the lower grades, they are not yet encouraged to use the Minecraft, because this is a game based and it's quite addictive. So
I can imagine that there would be people like playing this, even if they don't need anything else, just to play it. It's fun.
Actually, that's the main idea why we choose Minecraft, because we want to encourage more user to visit the library. That's why we choose Minecraft, because we realize that there are a lot of students who are using Minecraft.
Well, guys, I don't have time to do all the questions, but no doubt in the chat you can find them back later, and maybe people can communicate among themselves and get some answers. Gerald and J. Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Stay tuned in, and then we're going to the next presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have here now on my schedule, if I'm correct, Anthony Martinez. But on another schedule, I have Sagan here. So I follow the schedule. Anthony, are you there and are you ready? Sagan,
yes.
You have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, Sagan.
Anthony, I just want to say something on you. You are in Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I've been there. I've been to Dominican University, met the amazing Michael Stevens, one of my library heroes while he was still there. I think he's now in San Jose. Probably Sagan, met him every over there or online. You do a presentation on porch story time. As you may have seen in my slides, my motto for libraries was keep stories, share stories, make stories since 2007. I think if we do that in the right way, we have a future forever. We don't have to worry so much that libraries go extinct, because if you do that well, there's always people wanting to hear stories or tell stories. So you're taking out, if I read correctly, the library outside its walls, and you bring it to the homes of people. And even more important, you sort of make people take ownership. But I'm not taking away everything. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to leave the presentation to you. Please, people, send your questions in the Q&A box, and I give you the floor, Anton.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the sneak peek. Let me just share this. Okay, yes. So good morning from the United States. My name is Anthony Martinez. So excited to be joining you all today. Many thanks to IFLA and Albina and Priya for organizing the event, to Eric for moderating, to the fellow panelists for sharing their wonderful ideas. Also, a thank you to Dr. Ellen Knutson at the University of Illinois for encouraging me to submit for this webinar. So yes, as Eric said today, I want to tell you a little bit about a very hyper-local project proposal that I created for a course at the University of Illinois. So this is just a hypothetical project. It doesn't exist, but it could, hopefully one day. And it involves my local public library where I live in Ithaca, New York. So I attend the University of Illinois online, but I live in Ithaca, New York, which is on the eastern coast of the United States. And the proposal is called Porch Stories, a place-based storytime partnership with Ithaca's African American community. So first, a little background. Historically, the majority of African Americans in Ithaca, New York, have called the city's South Side home. But over the past 20 plus years, factors like gentrification have led many African American residents to be pushed out of the South Side towards the city's far southwest and north sides. This has led to several issues, among them that African Americans are now twice as likely to depend on public transportation or on receiving rides from neighbors to get around. There's also a general sense of social fragmentation, that there is no longer the feeling of a single cohesive African American community in Ithaca. The Tompkins County Public Library is only a few blocks east of the historic South Side. So as African Americans moved further away from the neighborhood, they also moved further away from the library. And the library is adjacent to downtown, so parking is very expensive. And so often when we see that folks who live further away from the library, they're less likely to use the library. We suspect that our African American neighbors are no exception to this, and has likely contributed to a growing gap in how they see the library versus how the library sees itself. Anecdotally, residents have expressed that they don't always feel welcome in the library, that they don't necessarily think of the library as a place for them. So it's no surprise then that the library has observed an underrepresentation of African Americans at its programming, particularly programming for children. This is concerning because in Ithaca, African American children don't fare as well at school compared to their white peers. They're twice as likely to be suspended between grades pre-K through 5th and are only 85% as likely to graduate high school. We know, though, that public library use is correlated with better performance on standardized tests. So the library is potentially a huge asset to African American children and their families, but many find themselves further away from the library, both physically and psychically, than ever before. So how do we bridge this divide? And how can we better identify, understand, and address their barriers to belonging? My proposal is that instead of finding some way to make them come to us, we go to them. And since we don't have a bookmobile, we will bring books and story times to Ithaca's African American children through the power of partnerships. We'll call it Porch Stories, which is a play on the very popular Porch Fest concept. For those of you who may not be familiar, Porch Fest started in Ithaca in 2007. It's spread across the country and into Canada and elsewhere. It touts itself as being a weekend-long event that creates and celebrates community by having local musicians perform on the front porches of local homes for passerbys to enjoy. But these homes, at least in Ithaca, are usually in predominantly affluent parts of town, making the performers and audiences primarily white. That's why Porch Stories will trade the bands for books and take story times out of the library and onto the porches of homes in Ithaca's African American enclaves. The significance of this, I think, is best expressed by the writer Audra D.S. Birch in her New York Times piece on the front porch, Black Life in Full View. She writes that while the front porch has been a fixture in African American life generally, in American life generally, among African Americans, it holds outsized cultural significance. She writes that the porch is, quote, a dais upon which to sing lullabies and honor memories, to weave folklore and family stories. It's a stage straddling the home and the street, a gift where community lives and strangers become neighbors. In this spirit, Porch Stories will only feature story times centered around culturally relevant and culturally responsive books that focus on Black joy, books that feature protagonists who excel in spite of adversity, books with settings that reflect the children's cultural images and history. Story times can at first be led by librarians, but very quickly should transition to being led by local residents, like the owners of the home, local elders, and other local prominent figures in Ithaca's African American community, like its mayor. And unlike Porch Fest, Porch Stories would last more than a single weekend. I can see it lasting, being weekly, if not twice a week, and spread out over the course of several warm weather months. So altogether, I like to think of Porch Stories as an opportunity for the library to invest long-term in the power and significance of Black folks reading Black books to Black children in Black spaces. To pull everything off, the Tompkins County Public Library will need to partner with the Southside Community Center, which here in town we just call Southside. Southside is Ithaca's preeminent nonprofit organization, quote, affirming and empowering the African American citizens of Greater Ithaca. They have a long history of putting on their own programming for children, though only some of it has revolved around literacy. So partnering with the library provides an opportunity for them to increase their impact in this area. They will be our key partner in helping forge relationships with both residents and homeowners. Homeowners will also be enormously important partners in their own right. A lot of trust will need to be built up with them and area residents before any programming takes place. That's why beginning and during Porch Stories, we would be sure to seek their input and feedback at every possible opportunity, because we recognize that asking them to let strangers onto their front porches is a privilege that must be earned. That's why before doing anything else beyond me sharing this proposal, we would want to get the Southside Community Center on board, because they may think this is a terrible idea. To be honest, that I haven't spoken with them, because again, this was just a proposal for a class. But I do think that I do hope that they would be excited about the idea, and we would be sure to make sure that they are considered full collaborators and co-owners of the project with an unfettered ability to shape its development and implementation.
Anthony, you have 1 minute.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So just quick desired outcomes for the project. I would love for the library to see that they're able to get more library cards in the hands of local children and their families, to enhance their collections by soliciting recommendations from readers, children, and their caregivers. The librarians being in these communities instead of stuck in the building gives them an opportunity to learn more about and respond to the African American community's unique barriers to accessing the library. as far as the African American community, outcomes I would love to see for them are that they have the chance to rebuild a relationship or build a new relationship to the library, and have a sense of trust and ownership in the library, by having the library be a guest in their neighborhood, not the other way around. And lastly, I just hope that Porch Stories in its own small way is as much about forging solidarity and coalition building as anything else. That this would hopefully lessen that sense of social fragmentation I mentioned earlier, because sitting on the porch and telling stories is usually done only in the company of folks you're familiar with. So ideally, the intimacy of these porch story gatherings will turn strangers into friends. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Big hand to you. I love this story. It's a great story. And it's a bit disappointing that it's not happening yet. We want to make this happen. Thank you so much. Well, one question for me, because we have like 4 minutes for questions. In order to do this, as you already mentioned, I think basically the library needs to become an inviting culture. The trust that you have to build needs to start from within the building in order to bring it outside. So give me 1 or 2 aspects that would help to create a more inviting culture within our libraries? It's a difficult question.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, it's kind of a chicken before the egg situation, right? Because I think in order to create an environment where folks feel welcomed and that they belong, you know, the building already kind of has to reflect that and exude that, and you can't really get that without first having, you know, their presence in the building and their input. So I think it would involve a lot of outreach and a lot of engagement, and just inviting individuals and groups and different community partners like Southside into the building, to just kind of to be very blunt and very open about, you know, this sort of discrepancy and who's using the library and why that might be, and, you know, in what ways the library thinks it can improve and enhance services or sort of the environment, what ways you know, community partners might you know, want to see things different, and then just making sure that those changes actually happen and are institutionalized and reflected in the policy and just the physical surroundings of the building, in terms of you know, signage, in terms of the kinds of material that's on display, that's on offer, in terms of the staff, which is hugely important. Who's working there? Do they look like the folks in town? Spoiler alert, no, they don't. Not at our library, and certainly at many other libraries in the United States. So there are a lot of little things that kind of need to happen first. And like I said, it's sort of hard to know where to start. So really doing anything at all is a huge step in the right direction.
I would definitely advise people watching this and tuning in to take a look at. I know that the Bibliothèque Sans Frontières, the Library Without Borders, is doing projects in the US in laundromats, where they go out into the community and build libraries in laundromats. And I can imagine you do programming there as well, and storytelling would be one thing. And the last thing you said, I know that the Idea stores in London, in the UK, run by Sergio. Sergio is a great guy. He hires his staff at the local snack bar, whatever, you know, and he teaches them to be librarians. So he makes sure that his librarian staff is a representative for the community. And I think that, as you mentioned, is a good start. I have to look at time. We have 1 minute. A question from Lina from Finland, Parviani. How did you engage with the communities to find performers, readers, and others to make this happen? Well, it hasn't happened yet, but what would be your advice?
Yeah, so the South Side, they're very connected. As I said, they're sort of the preeminent organization working with the African American community in Ithaca. They put on a lot of programming themselves already, lots of performances, lots of different educational events. They're very connected and would sort of defer to them to kind of help the library connect to the kinds of folks that would be really excited about this. And also, again, it's just sort of getting out there and talking to as many people as possible. you know, because there are a lot of, I think, hidden talents and individuals who you don't maybe you wouldn't think or be able to find online that would be a great fit for this. But that's sort of the whole point, is we would want this project to have a really long planning process so that we could uncover all those sort of unique talents and gifts that exist out in the community by just doing the hard, long work of walking around and, you know, talking to people. So a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I move on. I will go to the next presentation, and the last presentation of today. I've already been blown away. I know that Sagan, you are now, what is it? 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock? What time are we living?
5 a.m.
It's 5 a.m. in the morning. People, that you all realize that Sagan got up this early to share her thoughts with you, and the way she did. Sagan, you are studying at San Jose State University. Is Michael Stevens still there or not? Do you
Yep,
know?
I took my historical research and historical methods course with him.
He is amazing. He's one of my absolute library. He is like Gandalf. He's guiding me through the world of libraries, and he's always an inspiration. If you see him, say hi for me.
Absolutely.
We'll do that. You're going to take us, like I'm not going to talk, I'm trying not to talk too much. You're going to take us through the pandemic and how it moved you to swiftly and agile to sort of making the reserves available to as many students as possible, and what it takes to do that. Well, how do you need to respond, and how you promise us a lot in 10 minutes, Sagan. So I'm going to shut up and hand the floor to you. And please, people, ask your questions in the Q&A box, and I'll get back to you in 10 minutes, Sagan. Go, take it away.
All right, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Like Eric said, I'm a student at San Jose State University. I am also the Library Experience and Access Department Evening Supervisor at Oregon State University. And today I want to talk to you about what I'm titling Progress in a Pinch, Implementing Digital Course Reserves When the Time's Not Right. Anytime my screen would like to go forward would be lovely. There we go. Okay, so my today's goals is I just want to give you a very quick rundown about our eReserves project here at Oregon State. And that'll be also giving you the basics of CDL, which is an acronym I will explain to you shortly. And then give you some takeaways, both with some like hopefully tangible takeaways you can have, and also what I like to call like a trauma-informed librarianship lens to project implementation. But before I can go to any of this, I need to explain to you really quick what Course Reserves looks like to us at Oregon State prior to the pandemic. That means we were limited to print books only. We only took requests from instructors, and we only allowed students to have these materials for a very short time, usually about 3 hours. Occasionally they'd get a book overnight, but really it was come into the library, use your book in person, and then leave it here. So for us, we shut down during finals week, and our students were left without these critical texts they needed at a really important time of term. And for us, because Course Reserves is an equity issue, it takes away a financial barrier for students to be able to experience their classes and get the most out of it. And so we really had both a real need for our students, and also an ethical need to continue to support our students with Course Reserves through the pandemic. Real quick, I want to say before I go into a conversation about CDL, I'm not a lawyer or a llama. And also, I am in the United States, which when we're talking about copyright law has very specific ramifications about things. So if this doesn't make sense to you, I apologize for that. I just want to keep that in the back of your mind. So what is controlled digital lending, or CDL, which is really way easier to say? It's a legal theory that was developed by Dr. Michelle Wu back in 2002, and it's really a reinterpretation of fair use. It's the idea that libraries have the legal ability in the States to digitize books they own and then circulate a copy of that book in place of the print book. One very important thing about this is that it is controlled. And I'm going to double check. So for us, that means that we digitize our books and then we store those books behind the desk. There's a picture here of our course reserves area. There's actually multiple shelves that you can't see in this photo, but that's a very messy look down our stacks. It also means that we have to apply digital rights management to that book, which I'll give you a peek at what that looks like. We particularly use what's called Alma Digital. Data you don't need to know right now. But basically that digital rights management, or DRM, is a way of ensuring that patrons can't copy or distribute that material further. We're not just like photocopying books and sending it out and emailing you and you can share it with all your friends. It's a very controlled way of saying, we're allowing you access to this book for a limited amount of time in a specific way in order to protect both to protect us legally, but also to protect the copyright of the people who created these books in the first place. I mean, just one note, some libraries actually go so far as to destroy the print copy after they digitize it, so that there's no way that they are actually duplicating anything. They are just changing the format in which that book is shared. So we particularly use Alma Digital, which is a subset of Ex Libris's Alma Primo ILS. Some of you may know it. And that is the way that we create our temporary ebooks. And that ebook is loaned out while we hold back our print copies. So here's just, fortunately, it's always easier to go through a live showing, but for the purpose of time, I'm just going to show you some screenshots of our system. This is what our Alma Digital books look like in once it's been cataloged into our system. You have a note for the student to say it's got online access. They can go through and they can see the different chapters which are made available, and then they can click on that PDF chapter. Once they click on that PDF chapter, it takes them to a screen that has a copyright statement. This is just kind of boilerplate language. And then they have to physically close out of it and accept the copyright statement that method. And then once in, they can actually see the PDF. There's no way for them to download it, but it is screen reader accessible, which is another important aspect of this for us, is it actually made our course reserves more accessible to all of our students who have a variety of like vision modalities. And for us, even though we had to, like you said, pivot, rapidly implement, it actually hugely increased the reach of our course reserves program. Before the pandemic, we had 746 print books available to our students, and those checked out for just under 10,000 times that year. So each book got about 12 uses. Since the pandemic started, and this is actually about month-old data, I haven't run recent numbers, we've been able to scan 8,687 chapters, supporting over 490 courses. There's 662 books available, and those have received a total of 11,700 views for an average of about 37.8 views per file. With over 150 books getting over 100 views each. And that's in addition to being able to print licensed ebooks before going further. I do have the confused meme of numbers there because it's a little bit hard to compare these numbers directly. I like to say it's like comparing apples and apple juice. It's kind of the same thing, but it's processed differently. But in this sense, we're able to see that there's a greater number of usage. We've also been able to support students all across the world. At the beginning of the pandemic, we had students contacting us because they had the funds to buy a book, but the mail service was shut down. So by making this available online, we were able to expand what we were able to get to. And I won't read this whole screen to you, but I just put together a bunch of thank yous we got from our students throughout the pandemic. One in particular was an instructor who reached out to us to say that they had at least 10 students enrolled in their class who said they would have had to completely skip assignments if they didn't have the reserves that we gave them. And I told you I'd give you some takeaways, so I want to give you this in the couple minutes I have remaining. There's logistics.
Actually, 1 minute, Sagan.
Okay, I'll be super quick. Understand your limitations. Most people are using a software as a service, so that means you might not be able to code new things into it. You kind of have to use what you got. Learn to use some tracking software. I like Asana. Trello is another really good one. We also heavily used shared Google Drives and Sheets. And then break it down. This list here is actually the steps that we went to digitize each book. And by having it broken down into very small pieces, we were able to get people to move things forward with very limited training. And then finally, the empathy, trauma-informed side of things. Understand your limitations. You're a human living through a pandemic. It is a time of global trauma. Give yourself grace and kindness. Learn to love tracking software because trauma messes with your short-term memory. And finally, break it down. Take small steps and celebrate those small victories, because by the end of this year, you will be able to look back and see the progress you've made. And with that, I want to open up to questions, and I say thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Sagan. Once again, it's an amazing story, and great that you got up so early to share it with the world. Thank you so much. There's a few questions in the box that I will go to, but first, I just want to know that, and I love the last slides in which you say, be graceful to yourself and consider the situation and don't get crazy over this. As always, we should provide the best possible service to our end users that we can possibly deliver, and we do our best always. But what I just wanted to ask you is did you look at other libraries, other places where they're faced with the same problems, the same topic that they have to do something with, and did it help, or are you out on your own inventing the wheel? How is this?
Definitely not inventing the wheel in terms of controlled digital lending. There's a CDI implementers group that meets throughout the United States to talk about the logistics of things. But as far as I know, we're one of the only libraries who's doing this for course reserves. Most libraries that I talked to actually had to cancel their course reserves programs during the pandemic, had to lay off all of their student workers. So I'm just so fortunate through this that we've been able to keep this program going and also keep all of our student workers employed throughout this pandemic.
I have a question here for Anonymous. It's anonymous. I don't like anonymous. Anyway, it's quite of the feeling that you have that copyright will continue to harm these libraries. How are you making use of the Marrakesh Treaty? Do you know the Marrakesh Treaty, and do you make use of it? Of course, you know.
Could you? Oh, okay. I've not been using much of the Marrakesh Treaty, but I know it's been a conversation in our CDI implementers group. So I could definitely find info about it for you, how that connects to this.
Okay, we can do that later. There's also a question that says it's very easy to make audio PDF formats of the material. Is that helpful or not?
Yeah, we've had to make certain that all of our PDFs are screen reader accessible. And for us, we were fortunate to already have a scanner that allowed us to make that like all combine at once. Some of our PDFs we've had to edit after getting them scanned. We haven't done anything with making anything other than like automatic audio systems.
And your dreams for the future, how would you like to imagine? And please, I think you're doing great in the US and getting better at least. How do you think this will evolve when the pandemic is over and everybody is free to do whatever they did before? Will this continue to grow? I think so, but what are your thoughts on this?
I really hope that we're able to continue with this. I hope that we can also work with our publishers to come up with pre-created and licensable ebooks for us because this is a lot of effort to digitize and create an ebook from scratch. And in each case, it's because there is no ebook that we can license directly from the publisher. But yeah, I hope that we can continue e-reserves in some capacity in the future. It just opens up such a wide swath of students that we weren't able to reach before.
Well, thank you so much, Sagana. I think it's time we have to finish to round up. I have been inspired. I feel a bit sweaty from the COVID, but I'm okay. And I really think, and I want to thank IFLA for making this possible. And especially this group, the Division 4, to help students. You're our future. I mean, you're the ones who make sure that we will still be around in 30 to 50, 40 years, in whatever form and on whatever planet we may be. You guys are our future insurance. So thank you so much for spending your time with us and giving us your ideas. And I hope there will be lots of opportunities to interact after this seminar, this webinar. And I'll give it back to Albina to wind up and to get you interested in the next webinar, which will be in June.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. It was a very wonderful professional presentations from Norway, the Philippines, the United States. And I can say from my side that if I didn't knew that this is what the student station, I would think that it's we listen to professionals in LIS. So thank you very much. Also, I'd like to thank Eric for this wonderful moderation of high professionalism. Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
It's really honor to have you here at our webinar. And I will remind to everyone that this webinar was organized by IFLA Division 4. And today with us, there are a few members of the project team, and I would like to say their names. It's Maria Simonovic, Maria Tajalipur, Magda Gamulka, Suzanne List-Tretham. They were helping us with the moderating the chat and the Q&A. So thank you to them. I also would like to remind you that we are going to have our third webinar, and I'll share the screen right now in here. So in June 23, we're going to have the webinar with the topic LIS degree requirement, internship, practicums, or field experience. And we would like LIS students to share their experience from different countries. And we encourage you to send us proposals. And deadline for proposals is June 9. So I think you have enough time to prepare these proposals and send it to us. We will be looking for them. So also I would like to remind you that IFLA has many different events. So check out our other IFLA events at ifla.org. For instance, just right after us in 30 minutes, there will be the next webinar on open access and infodemics. So don't miss this opportunity to listen to new ideas. And also right after that webinar on open access, there will be one more webinar, and it will be dedicated to professional journals. And there will be speakers, editors from leading journals in LIS, IFLA Journal and Libri. So don't miss this chance as well, especially if you are in research area. So how to prepare an article for professional journal, that's your chance to hear from journal editors how to do that and how to do that properly. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.